Alright, so we're live. I know I said I was going to bed. God damn it. I really wanted to. I'm sorry, but I have to get this one out here. God damn it. Sorry, like. So, yeah. So, yeah, sorry. Quick one. I'm not going to be around long, but you guys can save this one and share it. This was sent in by a lovely fan. You're fantastic for bringing it to my attention. I really appreciate that you did some legwork ahead of time for nailing down that, yeah, this was something suspicious for me to look at. So, Vlad, you're fantastic. If you're listening, I appreciate that. Just need to call this one out real quick. It's a pretty basic one that makes itself exposed pretty quick in here. So, like I said, this is... What the fuck was this one called? YSFPI. I don't even know what the hell this is or what its proper name is. That's why I put a link in the description. You guys can figure it out from there. Again, tips to cyote.eth. This one looks to be another fucking rug pull. A little weird that they named it crowd sale token when that doesn't have anything to do with it, but technically this name doesn't mean jack all, so who really knows? What's really fucked up is that here in the math, the constructor, this is what happens, this is the code that gets executed when the contract gets launched. So the first thing they're doing is they're designating that something is stage 1. I'm not concerned. I'm a little concerned that a token deployment has stages. It's not like a terrible thing, but it might be a giant fucking problem. We'd have to go through that, but right now it's saying the current stage, the stage is none. This could also be them copying the crowd sale token and then just disabling some of the features in there rather than cutting out the code because they don't understand code. They just know how to copy and paste. Then there is yeah, so that's where right off the bat they pull that same sort of fucking shenanigan where they add to the owner's balance. So again, the owner is the one that deploys the contract. They add to the owner's balance. Looks like... Oh, god damn it. I can never... I'm terrible at math. I know, it seems crazy, but that's kind of why I got into computers. Because I'm terrible at math. Terrible even saying math, you know? But yeah, alright, so... 2,500 times 10... so yeah. They are... Looks like they're dispensing... They claim that the constant cap is 15,000. They have a constant of a token reserve that is 25,000. They're trying to set the base price as this many tokens, so it looks like they're trying to set the price at I believe that's 300. God, I'm tired and math is hard for a simple Doge brain. I'm sorry, yeah, they're setting it to about 30.1 ETH. Remember that? Oh no, I did not do that right. I typed it in wrong. Sorry. 30 times 10. Yeah, 300. So they're setting the price at 300 tokens per ETH. Kind of an amateur move to set your price like that. They also have this base price hard-coded in there, which was a little weird. So yeah, they got this process where they're dumping the token reserve into the owner's balance. Then to the token supply, they're adding in the token balance. Then the remaining tokens equals the cap, with the cap being this 15,000 tokens. So they're setting the total supply to 30,000 tokens. They're giving themselves the... Yeah, they're giving themselves the 25,000 tokens. They're setting the total supply to the 25,000 tokens. They're then setting the remaining tokens to this cap amount, which is 15,000, and then they have this payable method, which doesn't make any sense, and this start ICO. So when I'm looking through is, yeah, in payable method, it's requiring that the current stage be set to ICO start. And do we have a way to set the current stage? Yes, here we are. We have ICO, and this is where, so right now, these guys, they've got a payable method that they can turn on and off. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean, that they can stop people, like, sending and receiving money. Because, and see here, this is where they did that point of calling it the yield speculative finance. So they literally just tacked a little thing on the end that said, yeah, I want to be the thing up above. I'm just going to change some of the values. But in there, that's where, pardon, they have a method here that they can start the ICO. They have a method here where they can end the ICO. They have a method here where they can finalize the ICO. When they end the ICO, if there are any remaining tokens, then that gets distributed to the owner. So the owner gets all of the remaining tokens, and it transfers owner.transfer address. Yeah. And then it transfers all the remaining ETH that is in this contract. So any ETH that this contract has also gets transferred to the owner. So basically, this is the method that lets them pull out anything that's in the remaining tokens. And the remaining tokens, as we saw, get set to the cap. The cap, as we saw, gets set to 15,000 tokens. They dispense 25,000 tokens initially, and we can see that here where they get the balance of the 25,000 tokens. They release the 25,000 tokens, or they mark the 25,000 as the tokens as the total supply, and then they set this remaining tokens to the cap being that 15,000 tokens. Remember, that 15,000 tokens, that's not accounted for in the total supply that's being reported for the contract. And so then, once they, so long as, if they'd like, they could either use, well, I haven't even gone into the payable method, because Jesus Christ, I'm not sure. But, they start the ICO. If they go through here, oh god, this is a lot of math and I have to figure it all out. Picking up the main tokens, payable, if tokens sold, they're subtracting from the cap, they're doing the weigh amount, they're setting tokens to new tokens, adding the tokens to the tokens sold. Jesus, where are the tokens sold? I didn't see that variable. Oh, there it is. Token sold right here. It starts off as 0. So if they go through the payable, it's going to make sure that whoever sent it has more than 0. It's going to make sure that the remaining tokens is greater than 0. It's going to it's going to be looking at the message value and figuring out how many tokens to sell. So basically, whatever the message is that's sent in for this, it doesn't act as an argument for the function. It actually acts as a, if I remember correctly, the memo on the message. So it looks like they're trying to obfuscate a little bit how they would dispense this. I'd have to dig more. I'm tired and I don't remember all that shit. Sorry. But then, pardon, I smoked too much. Then the weigh amount, they are multiplying the base price, dividing that by 1 ether, and setting that to the number of tokens, then marking the return weight as 0. Then if the tokens sold, adding in the tokens that they just deducted, that they just worked out from the message value that was sent in. So long as that's greater than the cap, then that's the amount that they can pull out with the exit. They can set the new tokens to the cap minus the tokens sold. Yeah, so it looks like this payable method, where's the fucking transfer? Transfer this to the message sender with the return way. So payable also will let them define where some funds can go. They can. All right, so this is sending this is sending tokens from the wallet, or sorry, from the contract to whoever the message sender is. So they've also pulled an interesting trick here with the payable function. Interesting. So, yeah, it's supposed to let them send in Ether for the crowd sale, but it also looks like it's working out a return way. It's like it's trying to return some of the unspent gas, basically. And it transfers them back to them and transfers the return way. Otherwise, it transfers this tokens, and the tokens are equal to new tokens, and new tokens is the cap minus the tokens sold. Yeah, I'd have to dig in to see how scammy this part is. I'm not entirely sure. But honestly, the end ICO and how this transfers out remaining tokens to the owner, technically doesn't transfer out. Remember, boys, you don't actually have the tokens in your wallet. You have a private key that lets you access the ledger, that lets you update the ledger to just take the tokens. But because this is setting the remaining tokens to the owner and then transferring that to the contract owner, and then transferring everything the contract has or everything else the contract has out, that's what this is that so long as the developer owns this, they can call this end ICO method. End ICO is internal, so that is where, oh god, where are you showing up in there? Like, where do you actually get invoked? There it is in finalize. So, wait a minute. So they call ends ICO. Yeah, that would be it. Yeah, that's it. Hold on, and ICO is internal only. Finalize ICO is only owner. That requires the stages. Yeah, no, that's fine. This would happen. So what they would do is they would send in a transaction from the owner stating they want to finalize the ICO. Finalize ICO would make sure that the ICO hasn't already been ended, and we know it's not because in the constructor they set the stage to none, and this is doing a check to see if the stage is at ICO end. And as long as it's not ended, then they'll call end ICO, and so this way they can kind of hide what's happening. And by calling end ICO, they can transfer the tokens around, and since they're not emitting a transfer, they're just directly updating. Technically, what goes on in here, probably, I'd have to double check, but I'm pretty sure it wouldn't show up in the transaction hash. So basically, it would look like someone just called the finalize ICO method, which might seem entirely reasonable for closing out the initial coin launch. And then they would follow up, and in doing that, so essentially they're going to do, it looks like they're structuring this, that they're going to do a coin launch. They've got a bank of extra tokens stashed away in the contract, kind of hidden. They'll let the coin launch go through. Then they'll trigger the finalize ICO method because the ICO function is just updating the stage and then calling end ICO, and end ICO is then setting the stage to end ICO, which will disable the payable method. So if they need to put in extra ETH, they can, and then to make this thing run. And then, but I don't see any reason why they would need to, because they've got a portion of this other stuff. Then it just makes sure that if there's any remaining tokens, that, in which there is, because while it looks like they've set the remaining tokens to 0, as you saw, they actually set the remaining tokens to the cap. So if someone were to glance at this, I'm like, oh, okay, you've got some tokens that you're saving, so you got a base price, you got some tokens reserved. They're kind of hoping that people will miss this line, I think, in the middle of the code here, because that's what changes remaining tokens to 0, so that later on, when they call finalize ICO, what will show up on the transaction log is that the owner called finalize ICO, which anyone analyzing the transaction log, that would appear to be relatively normal for the end of a coin launch. I mean, if you don't know how the code's working and what it's doing, kind of reasonable to say that maybe they're ending an ICO. I mean, if you don't know how all this tech works, then might seem reasonable. And then that internally triggers end ICO, and since end ICO doesn't emit any transfers, there's no, this stuff is kind of obfuscated in the transaction log. And so I'm pretty sure that unfortunately from what we saw earlier, unfortunately tools like blocksy.info would not pick this up, because what tools like blocksy.info are looking for is they're looking for the data that has been logged in the transaction hash. That's what the emits are for. That's the code saying, okay, create an entry in the transaction hash record that holds this information. And since they're not emitting anything, this wouldn't really show up in the transaction hash, which would also mean that it's not going to show up on a lot of those graphs. That's kind of what was happening with the last one I was looking at. I don't remember the name. But yeah, that's why, like, even looking at this thing through Blocksy and trying to assess it, and even if you saw what was going on here, you would likely not even notice, like, you wouldn't be able to see that this transfer occurred, because there's no emission of a transfer. And so if you looked, you would just be like, oh, well, ICO's over. I guess they did their ICO. Okay. Closing out the ICO gives them a bunch of tokens, which then lets them pull the rug on you. And I really fucking hate that, and that's really goddamn annoying. So, yeah. Well, that was a quick one. Viewer dropped that on me. Thank you very much for bringing it to my attention. And like I said, thank you very much for doing the prelim work to say that you thought it was a scam, as opposed to just asking me what I thought. And yeah, that was it. So wanted this one to be short. Hope you guys appreciate this last minute one. It really was because a fan just dropped it on me at the moment, and had already done enough work that, I didn't think it needed to be. I think I could take a quick look. So anyway, let's close out with the trader's prayer. Uniswap, who art in the chain, hallowed be thy protocol. Thy market come, thy arbitrage be done. In law as it is in code, give us this day our daily gains. Forgive us for ignoring the price impact, as we forgive those that ignore the price impact. And lead us not into shitcoins, but deliver us from impermanent loss. Alright, hope you... Oh, negative review. Negative. Do not buy this motherfucker. Negative. They will rug pull on you. And thank you to Vlad for pointing this out to me. He is fantastic. So, yeah. Do not buy. This will be a rug pull. It will be an annoying rug pull. The interesting part is they were somewhat smart in that they staged their rug pull in the construction of the contract, did it in a way that you wouldn't be able to see the transfers, and then they don't get the tokens to be able to execute the rug pull until they call that finalize ICO method. And if you don't know what's going on in the code and you never looked at the contract, then seeing the finalize ICO method would be, like, it just might look normal to you. Like, oh, okay, that kind of makes sense, I guess. I'm not a dev, I don't know. These people think I'm fucking stupid, so... and yeah, it's, you guys aren't dumb. Just learn to code, man. Like, it'll change your fucking life. So, yeah. They wouldn't have gotten the token, so if you're looking through it, you would have seen that everything behaved normally, that all the transactions were completely normal, the extra ghost tokens were staged in the contract, and then they will transfer them out as the finalize ICO. Hopefully people wouldn't notice, and then, boom, they can go dump those on the team. The last guys were actually, like, YFVL, the light protocol. They were actually a bit smarter. I kind of give them kudos for pulling that off. Well, alright, maybe these are both a little smarter, because to be honest, Those guys we managed to catch through the preliminary transactions. This one we're catching through the fact that they're staging tokens and then have a way to pull that out. So these are all a lot of really interesting, innovative ways to scam people. I'm kind of intrigued to find out what this is, like what's going on here, and find all these little things. But again, Jesus fucking Christ, people, if you have the brains to figure this out, just do something valuable, god damn it. Please. You're just making life so much harder for everyone. We could be on goddamn Mars by now if it weren't for you fuckers.